iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.
Oh man, opening night was a blur. It really has it's all felt like one very long day. We started rehearsals. It feels like 3 days ago, and we opened just a couple of nights ago. It is the fastest process. It is the you know how worked out are the muscles in your brain in terms of learning and retention and application. Because Encore's production started as a staged concert reading, and now it's become this really beautiful opportunity for us to see what generally it could feel like if that show were to fully revive on Broadway. And this is to me, the most clean, clear, beautiful way of kind of doing a stress test on shows. And it requires, a caliber of artists that are ready to just throw themselves at the wall and learn a brand new piece of material, brand new show, whole full staged choreographed thing in no time, in like 9 days, and then do it, and do it for 2 weeks. And I'm proud to say that we have really done some beautiful work. I think it's really, the show is, if you know the show at all, you know how timely it is. And we bite into it. It is equally hilarious and full of beauty and excitement and hope and scary because it's so real. And I think that if you don't know anything about the show, we live in a alternate world basically where you have to pay to pee. It's very dystopian. Capitalism at its peak, and we all have to pay to pee, I think, in different ways. That's the convention of this show right here next door. But I think that the whole idea of us needing to stand up and say what we need and be steadfast in what we know that we need as humans and look out for one another and take care of one another is at the core of this show. And Teddy Bergman has directed a really human, albeit very funny, very caricature take. It is still real and kind of raw in that way. But I promise, I have never had a harder time keeping it together on stage. I'm surrounded by some of the funniest, most gifted artists, and it's a joy to do. Really, everyone is so funny in the show. Jenny Barber, who she has a multi-track in the show. She plays both, they're called The Poor, our ensemble. She plays a character, what's her name? Little Becky Two Shoes. She played Little Becky Two Shoes as The Poor, and then she plays Miss Millennium, who works for Mr. Gladwell. And as both characters, she is so unhinged. It's such a joy to watch and to be with on stage. But I have to look a whole foot above her head when she says anything to me because I can't receive her on stage. I have to work really hard to keep it together because Bobby's doing a different show. Bobby's trying to, rally the people and make sure that we all have what we need. And everyone, I'm just surrounded by idiots in the best way on stage. And Jenny is so good. Everyone is so good. Everyone is so funny. I feel like for this process specifically, knowing that if this were a real full Broadway production, we would have been in a rehearsal space for over a month. We then would go to a theater and load in and start teching, and we would take a week, 2 weeks to do that before inviting audiences to come and see what we have been building for the last. But all of that gets shrunk to 1/10 of the time, from the rehearsal process, the prep process, to the rehearsal process, to the actual production itself. It's so abridged. And so that said, you'll see in the show that there are some really complicated sequences with so many things, so much chaos happening everywhere, cacophonies of music moments and people singing all sorts of different lyrics at different timing. Same goes with choreography and with staging. Like it is. There's a lot of hectic and chaos, and I think that has to be the biggest challenge where this is concerned. Just because we don't have the time that you would have for a Broadway production to get comfy in it, we have to pretend that we are comfy in it, and that's that. They provided. We ask weeks, if not months ahead to get a hold of the material just so that we can start going over things. But even if I'm going into a show, for example, so much of my Broadway career has been replacing people. And that process is it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's really, you learn on an island, you're by yourself in the rehearsal process, like with a dance captain, and you kind of are learning the show and hearing rumor about like what happens around you, and like hearing tales of where people like will most likely be around you, but you don't really get to feel that until you get on stage and start to rehearse with some of your cast members, and that's just like maybe a week before you go on. And for this process, it's like I feel like it's been one of the more exhilarating theatrical experiences that I've had, because it's like jumping into a rehearsal process like that in preparation. It requires you to show up day one relatively off book, really. Like, to be able to get up and it just be you and one other person teaching you a show, like, you kind of want to be out of the pages as much as you possibly can. And so I think that we all have that mentality going into something like this. Is our creative team, our choreographer, our director, MD, they all function at the highest rate in something like this with pre-production. Mapping things out, not only what do we need to teach, but the priority of what needs to be taught, and then how to teach it with efficiency and with quality. And our creative team did such beautiful pre-pro work on this show. Basically had the show storyboarded. They were in for a couple of months before we even started rehearsals, just choreographing and staging and building what they knew that they had to teach us in a very short amount of time. And so the way that we meet them is we show up and have had our homework done as much as possible. And then when something gets set, on the way home, on the train, you go over notes, you go over voice memos in your head, you look at your script, you look at your score, and you try to really, ingrain what you learned that day so that the next day you can do it, you can move on. And that's a very long-winded way of saying do the homework. That's the prep. This show, I'm already going to have a hard time saying goodbye to it, because just as we are starting to really get comfy in it, our run's going to be done. It's such a short run. So I do hope that people want to see it again and talk about it. I think that really ultimately, it's recognition, perspective. None of us are in this alone. When I say this, I mean like life and the world and chaos and people and points of view. That everyone thinks that they are on the right side of their war. And this is a really healthy reminder of what we are up against. And even though we don't necessarily live in an alternate, like, dystopian universe, the flavor is still similar. So, like, let it be perspective, if anything. And really, I just hope that people laugh and can come and be like, wow, this is real, and it's in my face. But also, there's levity. And some of us cope best with trauma through laughter and togetherness. And I think that this is a really, really great show for that, especially for those of us that are like, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Like, whatever that is for you, we might make you feel a little less alone at City Center right now. What I do is a job. That's really it. Like, I'm a dad, and I'm a husband, I'm a family man. I am a reader. I love my family and my friends and going to basketball games, and I love what I do for work, but that's how I maintain my sanity. I just treat this like a job because it's a business, and I just happen to love it. I just happen to love what I do. But, through copious amounts of therapy and trauma therapy and hard work, I have learned how to not allow what I do to define who I am. Like, I am Jordan Fisher, the guy, like the dude, just the person, and not all of these things that people put my name with or my face with. It's a gig, it's a job, and it's a business. And that revelation that I thank my 30s and fatherhood for has been like the primary source of stability for me, like mentally and emotionally in all of it. I mean, I really start off any of those kinds of conversations with the same thing, like, please treat it like a job. The moment that you as a young actor, young artist, young producer, whatever it is that you wanted, the moment that you start treating it like a business, you will work. If you treat it like work, if you treat it like a job, you'll do the necessary things to function best in your line of work, because we're all private contractors. You will work. The moment you start treating it like a job and not your life, that's it. Like, we're going to be proud of you, even if you don't book it. Because it's hard work to just like get to that point. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. We're not going to be disappointed in you if you maybe book a thing, but you're not in the role or the track that what's yours won't miss you. I'm a perfect example of this. I've been doing this for 21 years. 21 years. And just in the last few years, people are like, oh yeah, Jordan Fisher, like, I think it's cool. To me, that's like, okay, like maybe that means more like consistent work. I don't know, but the moment that you treat it like a job and you do the work and just let it be the work and not the thing that makes you who you are. I know, like, I might be annoying about it, but it's like, that's what saved me. That's what's like let longevity be the thing for me, and not just like over and everyone wants more, bigger, faster. And you'll be unhappy. Yeah. I've had those 15 minutes. I have. And they affected me differently than they would now. Because I was like, oh my God, things are rolling. I'm making money. I got, movies left and right. I got singles on the radio. No one can touch this. Well, I mean, like, the industry's fickle, and it is what it is. But I just keep moving. I just keep pressing forward and recognize that, like, that is just a moment in someone's career, and it's not their entire career. For me, hopefully my entire career is consistent. That's what I want. I just want to like pay my bills and enjoy doing the thing that lets me do that. You know what I mean?
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.